Akeem, and welcome back to another edition of 60 Super Bowls in 60 days. We are at the U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is the largest glass-house stadium ever, which pretty much going to kill a lot of birds, but who cares? It's $1 million stadium. We're going to throw it at it, and nobody going to care unless it's spectacular, and it is. It is February 4th, 2018. We're at Super Bowl 52. It is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New England Patriots. My goodness, Akeem, you forgot to write the Patriots' name. There you go. And my God, this game was a doozy. This game was an absolute doozy. And there is one person that makes the Super Bowl all the more special. Well, actually, two people, of course. But before that, we get to the stats, of course. And Nick Foles, the MVP of the Super Bowl. Yes, Nick Foles, the MVP of the Super Bowl. I still cannot process that feeling, of course. This is now, 8 years, of course, and I still cannot believe it, of course. I say, of course, too many times. But Nick Foles was never supposed to be the quarterback of this Eagles team in the Super Bowl. He was never supposed to be that way. Carson Wentz was an incredible quarterback, of course, back then in that 2017-2018 season. He was dialing it in. He was brilliant. He was amazing. He was going to be an MVP winner. He'd probably be the MVP had he not been hurt in that regular season game against the Rams, in which his ACL got torn. And unfortunately, or fortunately for the Eagles, of course, they had to rely on Nick Foles. They had to rely on a journeyman kicker who hasn't been as elite, but hasn't been in a bigger spotlight like this. And in every single Eagles game that it played in the postseason, they were the underdogs. They were underdogs against Atlanta. There was underdogs in the Minnesota in the championship game, of course. They were massive underdogs. They were gigantic underdogs. They were the dog mass, of course, if I remember correctly. And Nick Foles just ride them out. Nick Foles was absolutely brilliant in those games. But this is a Super Bowl, and this is against Tom Brady and New England Patriots. And the question in many people's mind is how can Nick Foles, a backup quarterback, can do that against Tom Brady? Well, in a 41-33 absolute barn burner of a game, Nick Foles not only matched Brady's stride for stride, he went 28-43, 373 yards, and 3 touchdowns and interceptions. Yes, notice that stat. 28 times, 28 for 43, 373 yards, and 3 touchdowns and interception. He just outplayed Tom Brady, who played 28 for 48, 505 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He outplayed Tom Brady. He just literally outplayed Tom Brady and won MVP. Also, Trey Burton with a 1-yard touchdown catch. And I will explain that later on. That is more explainable later on. For the Russian, LeGarrette Blount with 14 carries for 90 yards at 6.43 a pop and a touchdown. Jay Ajayi, 9 carries and 57 yards at 6.33 a pop. James White, 7 carries for 45 yards at 6.43 a pop and a touchdown. Dion Lewis, 9 carries for 39 yards at 4.33 a pop. Rex Burkhead, 3 catches for 18 yards. Jesus, I read catches like it's supposed to be rushes. 3 rushes for 18 yards at 6 a pop. Now to the receivers when receivers do catch the ball. Corey Clement, 4 catches for 100 yards at 25 a pop and a touchdown. Alshon Jeffrey, 3 catches for 73 yards and 24.33 a pop and a touchdown. Zach Ertz caught the winning touchdown, of course. He was catching the ball, kind of tripped up and then caught it pretty much in the air, of course. It was kind of like a mid-air catch, of course, but still cool. 7 catches for 867 yards and 9.57 a pop and a touchdown. His wife is incredible, of course. He's incredible. That's just all it is. Torrey Smith, 5 catches for 49 yards and 9.8 per catch. Nelson Aguilar, 9 catches for 84 yards and 9.33 a pop. And then for the Eagles, Nick Foles with 1 catch for 1 yard and touchdown. And this was the biggest play of the entire Super Bowl. Pretty much the entire history of Philadelphia football, or pretty much the entire history of Philadelphia sports by a mile. I'm going to walk you through this play, man. This was wild. If anybody knows this play, you don't have to go through this. You can just skip ahead. I'll be talking about the rest of the stats. But if people do not know about this play and being hidden in the wilderness, I will talk about this play. I will talk about this play in length. I will talk about this play. So Doug Peterson was the coach of this. Doug Peterson was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles at the time. And He went to the sideline. Mick Foles went to the sideline, was at the 1 yard line. He went to the sideline and he told them, "Hey, oh Jesus, get ahead of myself, Akeem. We're not going to that Super Bowl yet." So they were at the 1 yard line. Doug Peterson speaking to Nick Foles, of course, and they wanted it's just gonna be a simple, 1 yard touchdown, probably hand off to the runner back, of course, or maybe use his legs, of course. I'm not sure that Nick Foles can use his legs, but I think he can. And then Doug Peterson decided to do a incredible idea. He decided that no. This is against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. What if instead I decided to do something simple? Instead, I decided to go 5D chess on on Belichick and decided, hey, you want to do Philly special? And he did. That play, by the way, is immortalized in a statue. They literally have the statue outside of the stadium in the link, by the way. And I just cannot believe that just happened. I mean, yeah. So yeah, Trey Burton pass complete to Nick Foles for a 1 yard touchdown. It was a little bit of a shuffle, of course. Wide quarterback going through, and then it was one guy hand it off, pitching in, and then another guy just throw the ball to Nick Foles. Easiest catch. I mean, imagine if he dropped that catch, man. Consider the scoreline at that point. It was kind of like, I don't know, that kind of looked embarrassing. And it was on 4th down. Guys, this was on 4th down and 1, for God's sakes. It was 38 seconds left in the half. 4th and 1, and you have the balls to decided to go for a play like this, a trick play like this at the 1 yard line. Hats off, man. Hats off. I mean, if it doesn't work, every single Philadelphia fan, and trust me, Philadelphia fans are just nuts at this point. Nuts. Would have come to your house and just chastise you until the day you die. Until literally the day you grow old and die. But for that to work, that took balls. That took absolute balls. And this sets up the entire game, of course, in which like Philadelphia just go blow for blow for New England and couldn't even keep up. And it just comes down to like one big play. We'll get to one big play later because we have to focus on New England's receivers. Danny Almador, 8 catches for 152 yards and 19 a pop. Chris Hogan, 6 catches for 28 yards and 21.33 a pop. Rob Gronkowski, 9 catches for 116 yards, 12.89 a pop, and a touchdown. But this is where the entire game turns. Because Brandon Graham, Lister Brandon Graham, pretty much a longtime Philadelphia Eagle legend, of course, in most cases, made the incredible sack and the forced fumble along with 2 tackles. But the forced fumble pretty much sets up the game-winning field goal, of course, because it was 38-33 at that time. Let me just see. Let's just see. I think it was 38-33 at that time. Yes, it was 38-33. It was Brandon Graham with the sack, and then he got forced fumble, recovered by Derek Bennett. And that was with 2:16 remaining in the game. Now, they did kick a field goal, which, it's still a little close because this is Tom Brady, of course. And it was a little too close to the Philadelphia fans, but this was a massive play. This was a massive play. Along with this play, of course, with the Zach Ertz catch, of course, which is huge. But in a game that has so much offense and so much scoring, which, by the way, I'll look ahead in the total yards. 538 for Philadelphia, 613 for New England. That is like what? 1,151 yards of offense, which is the most in Super Bowl history. Like no defense can even stop them. Like it was wild, the offense in this game. And of course the turnovers was like 1-1 each, and of course the one big turnover by New England pretty much killed the game off dead. But my God, in a game that has so much scoring and so much offense, and by the way, for Philadelphia to get 538 yards under Nick Foles of all people, my God, that is just wild, absolute wild. But the defense of both teams was not existent, but existed in some points. Jalen Mills, 9 tackles, Corey Graham, 8 tackles, Nigel Bradham, 7 tackles, Ronnie McClellan, 6 tackles, Vinnie Curry, Ronald Darby, Malcolm Jenkins, and Michael Kendrick with 4 tackles, and Patrick Robinson with 3 tackles. And Derek Barnett with the fumble recovery that I mentioned. For New England, Duran Hammond with an interception and 5 tackles. Patrick Tung, 10 tackles. Devin McCourty, 7 tackles. Malcolm Brown, Lawrence Guy, Eldon Roberts with 6 tackles. Trey Flowers, Jordan Richards, Kyle Van Noord with 5 tackles. And Stephen Gilmore and Eric Rowe with 4 tackles. Kicking the special teams, Jake Elliott 2 for 2 on extra points, and 3 for 3 on field goals. Stephen Kokowski 3 for 4 on extra points and 2 for 3 on field goals. I think that's a difference of like 4 points in a game that is pretty much like an 8-point margin. It could have been a different story, of course. And yeah, I mentioned about the yardage and turnovers. This was a wild, wild football game. And this game was important for the Philadelphia Eagles, who have gone through so long. A fan base that has been loud, notorious, has some great players, of course, with your Cunninghams and McNabbs, and of course, Michael Vick in a long world, with your Owens. Of course, they did make it to Super Bowl 39 and lost to the same Patriots team. So for this entire fan base, for Howell, by the way, Kenny Howell, of course, who was the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles at the time, for him to mastermind this, I mean, even I cannot believe his wildest dreams. If you're a Philadelphia fan and you're going to say, hey, Nick Foles, your backup quarterback, is going to win your Super Bowl, you're going to say no thank you. You're going to say no flipping thank you. But they did. They actually did. And it's a wild one. It's an absolute wild Super Bowl to talk about, to watch. And if you are a fan of like 31 other teams and seeing Tom Brady and New England Patriots lose, it's a holiday. It's a bank holiday. It's a national holiday for all you fans, of course. And for Philadelphia Eagles to do it, it's incredible. Incredible stuff. So anyways, thank you all for watching this edition of the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 53 is next. And yes, you kind of look at a little glimpse of that Super Bowl during the video. And I'm sorry to show you that because let's be honest. The Super Bowl that I showed you does not tell you the entire story. You thought the Blunder Bowl was the worst Super Bowl ever? That was more like egregious play for my two teams. This Super Bowl was so bad that it just ruins every single person's childhood, including mine. I will talk about the Super Bowl, of course, tomorrow. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Sorry about the camera.